Hey everyone, thanks for learning to play games. My name is Lance, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you some of the main features of a brand new game I just got in that is headed to Gamefound, and that is Jomsvikings. This is a new one from Dark Rabbit. It is a 1 to 4 player game that takes roughly an hour to 2 hours to play, and is a competitive game where players are going to be competing throughout the game to gain victory points. And they're going to do that by defeating different monsters and playing different cards that are going to give them different bonuses, as well as making their way up Yggdrasil and getting different bonuses from that. At the end of the game, whoever has the most victory points will be the winner of the game, and will hopefully be able to enjoy their time in Valhalla. So in this one, this is mainly a deck building game where you're going to be building up your deck, improving it, gaining new cards that you're going to be able to use both to help you defeat the monster that you've chosen in each one of the sagas, as well as hinder other players or help them depending upon how you want to play things. So in this video, I'm going to go over the main features of the game and also show you a couple sample turns to give you a better idea how this one plays to help you decide on whether or not this is one you want to back on Gamefound. As always, if you find my videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribe to my channel. It's one of the easiest ways you can support channels like mine so we can continue to grow, build, and produce this content. If you want to get notified anytime I drop new videos, as I'm constantly dropping new teaching videos, playthroughs, crowdfunding videos, and many others, hit that notification bell and I'll let you know whenever I drop new stuff. I also have a full playthrough video up in the top corner if you want to check that one out and get a better idea of how the game plays throughout. That video is another one that you can check out as well. A couple other important things I want to point out with this game. First off, there is a solo and a cooperative mode in there that I won't be covering in this video, but I just wanted to let you know so you're aware if that makes a difference on whether or not you want to back this. I also want to point out that all the materials you see here are prototype materials and are subject to change, and it'll go a lot better in the final production copy of the game. So let's go ahead and head to the table, and we'll see what this one's all about. The first thing I want to cover are the characters themselves and their boards, and each player is going to have 2 different boards. So the first one is the character board that is going to have you slot your character that you choose into that, and each character is going to have a name at the top, the number of coins that that character starts with, and the 5 different stats for that character. The first 3 are the different attack types, which are ranged, magic, and melee attacks. Next is your critical value and then the number of hit points you have, and you'll get to mark all of those on your board to keep track of those. Each player is also going to have a spot to keep track of that player's glory points. At the end of the game, the player that has the most will be the winner. And then each character is also going to have 1 or more abilities on their card. Some of them will be granted or give the player benefits at the beginning of the game. Others will have other effects or will have abilities that you can exhaust to trigger them. The other board that each player is going to have is a battlefield board, and this is where the player is going to play all of the different cards from his or her deck. And this board is going to have a number of different locations you can play these cards on. So each player is going to start with a deck of 12 pre-constructed cards, and these cards are going to have various values on them. So first off, let's go over the cards. So each card is going to have a fate value and a damage value. And some of the cards are also going to have an ability. As you play those cards into your combat area, they are going to be you're going to total up the fate values of all the cards in there. So as you play different cards, they're going to continue to add to your fate value. The fate value is going to be used to determine if you score a critical hit or if you bust. So whatever your critical hit value is, for the character that I showed you before, that is a 12. So you're trying to get 12 fate points or less in order to successfully damage a monster. If you get more than that, then you have failed and you will not do any damage to that monster. At the bottom value is the amount of damage that you're doing. So for example, right now with these cards in here, we would be doing 2 damage to the monster that this character is fighting. Now there's also 3 or 4 other spots above the board that you're going to be using throughout the game. The first one is healing, and with healing, prophecy, and precision attack, you can only have 1 card in here at any time. So if I have a card in healing, then I will not be able to use another card in healing again until this card is removed, which will happen at the end of each saga. And then there's also cards that you can potentially get that will allow you to remove cards from some of these areas as well. And there will be monsters that will put cards in these areas, blocking those areas from you being able to use them. So going back to it, with healing, you're going to gain a number of hit points based on the fate value of the card you play in there. Next, with Prophecy, depending upon the value you play in there, that allows you to remove the rightmost card or second rightmost card from your battle deck. So if you're working on trying to get that critical and you happen to go and do a blind draw onto there and it goes over that, so let's go ahead and say that I played this one and that was too much. It went over my critical value. I could play a card in Prophecy and remove this one and add it back to my discard pile, bringing me back down to potentially try to get a better card in there. Finally, we have Precision Attack, and with Precision Attack, that one allows you, depending upon what you play in there, if you play a 4 or higher in there, it does an additional point of damage, and it gives you Piercing, which goes past a monster's resistances. So if you are using an attack type that the monster has a resistance to, Precision is going to help you get through that so you can actually damage the monster. And then finally, I have the Current Round spot. So with the Current Round spot, that is where you're going to be able to trigger the abilities on your cards. That is the only space you can play a card to trigger its ability, and you'll simply carry out the ability on the card that you play. Now this slot can have any number of cards in it, so you can continue to play cards to gain the benefits of those cards. Next, the game itself has a deck building element, so players are going to be able to acquire these upgraded combat cards throughout the game and add them into their deck, tailoring their deck to their play style. And there's going to be tons of different cards included in this deck, such as Harmony. With this one, it allows you, if the battlefield board has at least 6 cards, you're going to gain a victory point or glory point. You get to draw 1 combat card, and you increase the damage dealt by 2. So if you're working on having a long set of cards in your combat row, these cards can really be helpful as they're going to add all kinds of additional abilities. With Wisdom of the Valinor, you have draw 2 cards from your combat deck. Or if you can't cheat Fate, this one lets you choose a non-wild monster, and it's going to play an additional monster combat card this round, and you'll lose 1 health. So this can be really nasty on another player if you're really trying to potentially eliminate that player that took a brutal monster or whatnot. You can drop this card in your Current Round spot and carry out that ability, forcing that player to suffer through 2 combat cards that round, or more, depending upon what kind of cards you pull from that. Throughout the game, players are also going to be able to acquire equipment cards, and these will give players all kinds of different benefits and abilities that they can use and all kinds of other stuff. There's going to be 6 different types of equipment cards included in the game. Those are shields, armor, weapons, artifacts, companions, and implants. Each one of these cards is going to grant a player glory points at the end of the game if they have it, and then the cards are going to give different types of upgrades, including upgrades to stats such as your criticals or different attack types or whatnot, and cards are also going to grant players abilities, whether these are passive abilities or single-use abilities that you have to exhaust the card to use and carry out the effects of those. An important note with this is that a player is only allowed to have 1 shield, 1 armor, and 1 weapon card, but can have any number of artifacts, companions, and implants. If a player already has one of these cards and they gain another one, such as, let's say that a player has this shield and that player gains another shield, that player will have to choose which shield to keep and which one to get rid of. Next, this is a game about Vikings, and they are about killing monsters. So throughout the game, during each one of the sagas, players are going to select a monster that they wish to battle, and each player is going to be fighting their own monster. And there, again, are going to be 3 levels of monsters, so each level is going to have its own deck of cards that will contain a variety of different types of monsters that players are going to face. Each one of these monster cards is going to list the name of that monster on the top, the type of monster, the number of glory points that monster is worth when it is defeated, the number of hit points that monster has, and any resistances to the different types of attacks that monster has, as well as that monster's amount of stats for damage that each monster is going to, when it attacks, is going to reveal a special deck of combat cards that is going to list what type of attack it is, the icon that it's going to do, and any other effects that that monster is going to carry out during that attack. Some monsters are also going to have key words such as regeneration that'll heal that monster at the end of each round, or treasure that's going to give you a treasure card or an equipment card when defeating that monster. And there's going to be a number of other effects as well, and the monsters will get nastier and nastier as you make your way through the game. During each one of the sagas, players are going to be visiting a planet that they're going to fight their monster on. And each one of these planets is going to have an effect that will last for that particular saga. Some of these are going to be beneficial for players, such as this one here, which with each player defeats a monster, they're going to gain 2 additional glory points. Some will have abilities that players will be able to trigger, such as each player can lose a health to draw a card from their combat deck, and this is once per saga. And others are going to be detrimental to players. With this one, for example, all damage dealt by monsters is increased by 1. And the final thing I want to do is take you through a couple of sample turns to give you a better idea how this game plays. So moving into the game again is going to be played over 3 sagas, or 3 full rounds. Each one of the sagas is going to be broken down into 3 phases that you're going to do. The first phase is the preparation phase. During this phase, the players are going to determine the first player, which at the beginning of the game is the player that has the most coins. After that, it's going to be the player that has the lowest number of glory points. Once you've determined the first player, so in my game, I am choosing to play I'm playing a 2-player game, and I have Lagatha and Scold that I'm going to be using. So Lagatha is going to be my starting player, and then from there, you're going to go through a number of steps. The first step is each player is going to gain an equipment card of that player's choice from the selection of 3, starting with the first player and then proceeding clockwise around the board. When a player selects a equipment card, they're going to add it to their side and gain any benefits from it. Now, a player can spend a coin or any number of coins to re-deal out those cards, removing the 3 from the selection and adding 3 more to it before making their selection. Once the players have handled that, then the players are going to get new cards for their deck. And each one of starting with the first player and proceeding clockwise, each player is going to get to take a card. And this is going to continue going until each player has added 3 additional cards to their deck. Once the players are done with that, then the players are going to move up the Yggdrasil track and gaining benefits from that, which could be either removing or adding a card into their deck, or other ones gaining a token from the bag, being able to add and subtract a card from their bag, as well as other benefits, including gaining additional victory points for going into certain spaces or additional equipment cards for going into spaces. Once the players are done with that, which I have handled all of that already, as that does take some time to get through, then the players are going to be able to reveal the next planets that they're going to be going on. So I'm in Niflheim, and this one says the first character who defeats a monster on this planet is awarded a treasure. So that is really good. So whoever can defeat a monster first will benefit from that. And the last step is that each player is going to choose a monster to battle. And again, it's going to start with the first player revealing 3 monsters and choosing one of those. So we have a Revenant, we have the Hattai, and a Shadow from... I am not even going to try to pronounce that. I will mutilate the heck out of that. Okay, so with this, each player is going to choose a monster to battle. And each one of those monsters, as you saw earlier, has certain resistances to certain attacks. So as a player, you want to pick a monster that is going to be hopefully a little easier for you. Each monster, again, is going to be worth some victory points and will have a number of hit points and all of the different stats for that monster. All right, so again, it's going to be Lagatha choosing first. And so we have a couple of choices here. Well, what do I want to pick? I don't want to go with that one because it does have resistance to melee, as she is really more kind of tooled up a little bit at this point for melee. So I think for her, that would actually be the best choice. And this one heals. So after you defeat it the first time at 6 health, it comes back, but it's worth 6 victory points. So it's worth more than any of the other ones out there. So I think I will take that one with her. All right, and then we replenish. So the other player has 3 choices. Submitted Guardian Giant. Oof, and he's got some hit points on him. All right, so she is really focused on magic, so either one of those two would actually work really well for her. It just depends on how she wants to handle this. I think I'm going to go after this one, though. It does have regeneration, but it gives her a treasure card, which would be beneficial. So I'm going to go after that one. All right, so then the rest are going to simply be discarded, as you won't use those for this game. And then you're ready to move into the combat phase. So during the combat phase, each one of the players initially is going to select their combat style based on the monster that they're going to go after, and that's going to dictate how many cards that player draws. So for example, with Lagatha, she's going to use her melee combat, as again, that is susceptible to it, and she's going to draw 5 cards from her deck and add them to her hands. And the other player is going to do the same thing, so that player is going to choose magic, and will draw 5 magic cards, or 5 cards from her deck for her stuff. From there, then it's going to start with the first player, and it's going to go between players in a clockwise manner, with each player taking a turn. During a player's turn, that player has a number of choices, but they're going to perform one of those choices during that turn, and then it's going to pass to the next player. So I'll go through those choices real quick. So the first one is to play a card from your hand. You can play a card into your combat track to start working up, and you're going to total up the number of fate points you have across all cards. You're trying to get less than or equal to your critical value. If you go over, then you won't do any damage at all. So you have to be careful on how far up you go. And then at the bottom of each card is going to, again, list the damage that card does. So as I build up my combat row, I want to try to build up that as well. Now, a player can also play a card into healing, which will heal that player a number of points based on the faith. You can place it into prophecy, which based on the number that you play in there will allow you to remove 1 card from either the rightmost spot on your combat or second rightmost if it's a high card. Precision attack, if it's a 4 or higher, will do +1 damage and has pierce, which means that it gets past the monster's resistances. And then finally, you can also play a card into the current round to carry out the ability on that card, whatever that is. That's your first option. So again, playing a card into your board. Your second option is, or another option, is to do a blind draw, which allows you to take a card from the top of your deck and place it into your combat row. That's your only option for that. As a player, you can also activate any equipment cards you have or player abilities by exhausting that ability or card to carry out the ability on there. And you will also be able to use a token or pass during your turn. All right. And so then let's go ahead and jump into it, and I'll show you a couple of rounds or a couple of turns and how this all works, and then I'll explain how everything wraps up after that. All right, so moving into Lagatha's turn, she's going to go ahead and start off, and I'm just going to go ahead and start off really simple. I'm going to go ahead and place a card in the combat section, and that is her turn. So it's going to pass to the next player, and that player is going to go through and choose. He wants to increase, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with her. I'm going to go ahead and place a card into my current round space. So this one says that I get to dodge the next regular, critical, or special or critical attack made by a monster. So that way then she's not going to potentially take any damage this turn. So moving back over to my first player, I'm going to go ahead and do a blind draw from the deck. And again, this goes right into that space. So now I'm at 4 for her fate and 2 damage. So her critical is 12. So I'm 4 points into that already. All right, back over to player 2. On player 2, I'm going to go ahead and play. I'm going to go ahead and play this one into my combat zone. All right, back over to player 1. I'm going to go ahead and exhaust my equipment card here. So this one, it lets me advance my pawn 1 space on your Yggdrasil track. So I'm going to move up 1, and that lets me add or remove a card from my deck. And I think I'm going to add this one. This one lets me heal a character of your choice. That could be pretty handy. And it's also a low-level card, so it could be also helpful building up my track. Okay. Back over to player 2 to go. Player 2 is going to... I'm going to go ahead and do a blind draw and add it to my area. So it's another 2-0. 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 I will do... I'm going to go ahead and use this one as a current round card. So this lets me remove an exhaustion token from a card or ability on my character. So that can be really good. All right, back over to player 2. I'm going to go do another blind draw. So it's a 1. Back over to player 1. Let's see, what do I want to do here? I want to do a blind draw. So puts me up to that. And this is going to continue going back and forth. So from here, I'm just going to go ahead and fill in some stuff real quick here, just to show you how this works. So she needs 12. So let's go ahead and say that she did another blind draw. So that puts her up to 8. Yeah, let's stick with that. All right, so from there now, as players play cards, once both or all the players pass in a row, then the combat round is come to an end, and you're going to resolve that dealing damage to your monster. So let's go ahead and start with the first player. So Lagatha is going to go ahead and start us off. And with that, she's going to start off by counting up her cards and determining things. So first off, she had 4, 8, 12. So she got her critical that she needed. So when you hit your critical, you're going to get to draw a card into your hand. You get to add 1 damage to the combat this round, and you gain a victory point. So there, you're going to total up your damage. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus the 1 for getting the critical. So she's at 6. And then she doesn't have any other current round cards that she had to handle. So she does 6 damage to the Revenant, and that was just enough to defeat it. So at this point, she's going to gain 3 victory points for that. And then he's going to come back at full health. Okay, so from there, then it's going to go to player 2. So player 2 does 3 damage there. And I don't think I had anything else in here. Choose character or monster to increase the damage they deal this combat round by 2. So she's going to choose herself. So that's 5 damage. And then all of the 0 damage cards in your battlefield board instead do 1 damage. So now all 3 of those also count as 1. So she's doing 6 there, 7, 8. So she did 8 points of damage, plus she got the critical. So she's going to get a victory point. She does 1 more point of damage for 9, and she gets to draw a card. So she did 9 damage to that bad boy. So he is down to 4 hit points. All right. So now from here, if there are monsters still alive, then each monster is going to attack that character. So starting off with the Revenant, he's going to go ahead and start by drawing. And so he has a critical attack. Discard 1 card from your hands. So I have to choose one of these to discard. I'll discard that one from my hands. And then he does the critical. So the Revenant heals all health. So luckily it had already been eliminated. So, because according to this ability, so it says the first time you eliminate the Revenant, gain 3 victory points. When the Revenant is brought back to life, if you eliminate it again, you gain 3 more. So I had eliminated it, and now it's back, and it doesn't have any hit points yet. So I got lucky there. All right, now the other creature is going to go. And, I forgot to resolve the damage. Okay, so it was a critical attack. So the Revenant heal, okay, and it does 4 damage. All right, so I am at 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. So I am at 7 health. And then we're on to this guy who is going to do monster heals 2. So that's not good. And it is also going to do a special, so 5 damage on her. So she is at half health already. She doesn't have a ton of hit. Well, she did do the dodge, so she doesn't take any damage from that. So that works out. And then it also has regeneration 1. So at this point, then you're going to handle all tokens. So it's going to heal 1 more for that. So it got a bunch of hit points back. And then you would handle any other end of round effects. So those would be any cards you played in your current round are going to be discarded. Any cards in your combat row are going to be discarded. Any cards you played in healing, prophecy, or precision attack will stay there. Those are locked in there unless you have a card or ability that says that those come off. but neither one of our players played anything in those, so these will all be discarded. And then you would move into another round of combat where, again, the players are going to get to draw cards into their hands based on their selection, and they're going to carry out that effect again until one or both player, or until all players have defeated their monsters, or if the monster has defeated a player. So, for example, if this player lost all of her hit points, then that monster would defeat her, and there's some consequences to that. Now, no player is ever out of the game, so during the next saga, that player would come back in and get to take their turn as normal. So again, at this point, then, after all players have completed the 3 sagas, then they're going to move into a final step where they're going to get additional victory points for any equipment that they have, any tokens or certain tokens they have, such as the coin tokens or Thor tokens, they're going to get victory points for. And then the player that has the most victory points or glory points is going to be the winner of the game. So I hope this video helped you decide whether or not this is one you want to back on Gamefound. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please post those in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Or swing by the Gamefound page and drop any questions you have there as well. I'm sure the creators would love to hear from you and are more than happy to answer any questions you have. Until next time, I'll see you later.